what's going on, you guys? Nick here with Nick Strength and Power. I've got a couple of interesting stories for you guys today. The first story that I've got for you guys today, the latest physique update from Samson Dauda. We're now 3 weeks out from the 2024 Mr. Olympia. And we're starting to see a lot of updates from a lot of the top guys in really all the divisions. And Samson seems to have been exceedingly generous with this Olympia prep as far as the updates that he's given. He must be very confident in how he's looking, because I feel like he's posted video updates like multiple times a week for pretty much the entirety of this prep. So in this 3 weeks out update, he's hitting the kind of classic Jay Cutler quad stomp. And I think he looks really impressive here. Big, full, detailed. Abs look really separated. You can see some good striation in the chest. Without a doubt, one of the most impressive bodybuilders in this Olympia lineup. Some of the most impressive updates that we've seen going into the show, besides the other two guys that beat him last year, Hadi, Choopan, and Derek Lunsford. But Samson, top 3 at last year's Olympia, looking to move up this year. Will this be the year that he's able to do it? And this year, he's also got to fend off Nick Walker, who was in the top 3 the year prior. And to be honest, so far up until this point, I think the updates that we've seen from Samson have been more impressive overall than the updates that we've seen from Nick. So I have a feeling that Samson's going to be in that top 3 again, but also Nick really hasn't posted a whole lot of updates this time around. But Nick did have this to say when he was asked about Samson and Hadi.
Listen, at the end of the day, they're all great competitors, but I'm coming to take everybody out.
Now, next up in the news, we've gotten a lot of updates over the past couple weeks from Ramon Dino. And typically, he's one of the quieter guys when we get close to the Olympia. He's one of the guys that doesn't post as often. And I think this has probably been maybe the most I've seen him post as far as physique updates, posing videos, training videos, just everything. Going into this Olympia, Ramon has been very open with the updates. And I think similar to Samson, that shows that he's confident in how he's looking. And I think he's got a chip on his shoulder. I think it's kind of similar to Hadi Choopan. When Hadi lost the Olympia in 2023, he came back to the Arnold with a vengeance and won both of them back-to-back. And I think Ramon is looking to do that same thing, because I think the upset at the Arnold Classic was probably the biggest upset of the year. And arguably, I think one of the more surprising results of any bodybuilding show in 2024 so far, Wesley beating Ramon. And I think Ramon understands the gravity of the situation that he's in. When it comes to this year's Mr. Olympia, he's got to reclaim that spot above Wesley. He's got to beat Wesley at the Olympia if he wants to keep up the momentum that he's had for the past couple years, being right there behind Chris. He's got to be way better than the Arnold. He's got to fix his posing. He can't be up there kind of shaky, not looking confident, not holding his poses long enough. He's got to be sharper than he was at the Arnold. And by all measure, he looks great in all these updates that we've seen. But I still wonder if it's going to be enough to beat Wesley. Because I think if we're being honest, I think the Arnold Classic really set Ramon back, at least in the eyes of his fans. He definitely lost, I think, a significant amount of the momentum that he had. And like we've talked about a lot, the conversation has really changed this year, especially after the Arnold Classic. Whereas when it was Chris and Ramon, it was all these Brazilian fans, and really fans from everywhere, saying Ramon's going to be that next guy. He's either going to beat Chris or he's going to be the guy after Chris. And now Wesley has totally flipped that conversation on its head. So I feel like if Ramon loses to Wesley again at the Olympia back-to-back, and he's on, it's really bad for Ramon. And I say that because in these updates, like I said, he looks great. He looks like he's going to be on. He looks like he's going to be better than the Arnold Classic. And with the Arnold Classic situation, you had Ramon going on vacation like 6 weeks out from the show. It doesn't sound like he prepped very long, or at least didn't prep very seriously until about 6 weeks out from the Arnold. So what I'm saying is, if he comes in totally on at the Olympia, better than the Arnold, he's not screwing around, he's prepping hard, he comes in with a really good look, better conditioning than the Arnold, etc., and then still loses to Wesley, I think he knows the damage that does to the status that he had as kind of the heir to the throne. And I think with Wesley, if Wesley comes in better than the Arnold and he beats Ramon, or an on version of Ramon, Wesley's definitely next in line. And I think this year might arguably be the most important Olympia for a classic physique competitor to want to be the guy that's runner-up to Chris Bumstead. And I say that because I think Chris is going to win. And I also still think he's going to retire. So whoever is runner-up to Chris this year, that's going to be the guy that's talked about all year in 2025 leading up to the Olympia as potentially the next guy. And it's going to be interesting to see who's able to fill those shoes, because those are big shoes to fill. And that brings me to Wesley. Wesley's a big dude, and Wesley recently did a guest posing. He also recently posted another physique update at 3 weeks out. And I think Wesley is a guy that has the potential to fill the shoes of Chris Bumstead. Because here's another real thing to think about, not just from the aspect of competitiveness or at the actual Olympia competition itself, but think of what Chris did for classic physique as a whole and the eyes that he brought to the sport. When he's gone and he's not competing, the next guy that wins the classic physique Olympia is going to have a pretty big burden following in his footsteps, trying to maintain that same level of eyeballs. And I think Wesley and Ramon would both do a good job of this. Obviously, Ramon has that massive international fan base, but I think he needs to prove himself again to kind of earn that hype back, even though I'm sure he's still beloved in Brazil. But I think Wesley has a physique that has a little bit more star power to it, like I've said before, kind of freak factor. And you look at him in this guest posing, and I would say the one thing that I always point to with Wesley that could be construed as his weakness would be his legs. And in this guest posing, his legs, to me, look bigger. They've always been pretty separated. They've always been pretty conditioned. He's always had a good amount of detail. But the proportion of his legs to his upper body is off. And I think that's something he's been working on. Because I remember early in Wesley's career, Wesley talking about how, you know, when Classic Physique started, Classic was supposed to be this homage to the golden era of bodybuilding. And back then, they didn't have super big legs. And they didn't even necessarily have legs that matched the muscularity of their upper body. It seemed a little bit less important back then. I mean, obviously they still had good legs, but it certainly wasn't the same as what it is today, the importance that it is in modern open bodybuilding, the size of your legs. So Wesley had said in earlier videos that that was like intentionally part of his look, because Classic Physique was kind of just beginning back then, and they were still trying to figure out exactly what this division was going to be and what the standard was, and that's the standard that Chris ended up setting. So, bringing it back to this guest posing, you look at Wesley's physique. You know he's going to bring a similar stage presence as Chris. He's a taller guy, he's a more muscular guy, he's heavier, higher weight limit, etc. You know he's going to bring conditioning. You know he's going to bring detail. You know whatever he's doing now with Stefan seems to be working very, very well for him. To me, his legs look bigger in this guest posing. I do think, however, his legs have always looked more impressive from the front than they do from the back. And for that reason, even if he's able to beat Ramon, which he's already proven he's able to do, if Wesley surpasses Ramon at the Olympia this year, I still think he's not going to beat Chris. But I think Wesley's physique brings enough of that wow factor that he can stand with Chris, and it would be really entertaining and even maybe look competitive. But I think it is interesting to think about when it comes to Wesley and Ramon, who, you know, this battle for second place that we've been talking about. And you consider Chris Bumstead's potential retirement, there will be a void that comes with Chris leaving. And when you think about those two guys, and I guess this will be the question for you guys to answer in the comments down below. When you think of those two guys, Wesley and Ramon, and maybe you're thinking Urs in second or somebody else, but whoever is behind Chris this year, who do you guys think would best fill the overall void that's going to be left by Chris? Not just in terms of their physique winning the Olympia, but just across the board, the impact that Chris had, the following that he had, the eyes that he brought to the sport, the success in business and everything else. I mean, you really couldn't have asked for a better ambassador than Chris was for a brand new division. I mean, think about how recent that 2016 was when this division was created. And for Chris to come in within the first couple years of that division and totally just bring massive popularity to this new category, which arguably now might be, in terms of numbers, the biggest of all the categories. If you look at the Olympia qualified competitor list, how many guys are there, how many classic-only pro shows there are, how many amateur classic guys there are, it might be the most popular division in terms of participants. And I think a lot of that is owed to Chris. And that's no disrespect to Breon, no disrespect to Danny Hester, who was the first Classic Physique Mr. Olympia, but I don't think that division really took off until Chris came in and won. Now, next up in the news, I also wanted to talk about the latest physique update from Rafael Brandao. This was posted to his story a couple days ago, 3 weeks out from the Olympia. Rafael hitting a most muscular here. He's a guy that qualified relatively early on at the Arnold South America. So I feel like he hasn't been as talked about as some of the other guys when it comes to a guy that's potentially going to crack the top 6. I think we kind of tend to have a very recent memory when it comes to bodybuilding. The guys that were competing or posting a lot close to the Olympia are the guys that we talk about. So those shows at the end of the season, I feel like those guys get talked about more than the guys that qualified earlier on. And Rafael, looking at this update, I even saw somebody put this up. They took a screen grab of Samson's most muscular and put it up next to this update from Rafael. And I think this shows you just how impressive Rafael is and just the level of improvement he's been able to make. I still don't think his legs are on the level of Samson, but he's definitely improved his legs tremendously this season. But when you look at these guys side by side, Samson is top 3, one of the best bodybuilders in the world. He's a top 3 Olympian. He is the elite of the elite. And you look at him next to Rafael, and I think Rafael still looks really good even next to Samson. I think that Rafael is really going to surprise some people. I think he's got a really legitimate shot at being in the top 6 at the Olympia this year, his best ever Olympia placing being 10th in years prior. I think based on what we've seen from Rafael so far, I think he's really going to be in the mix here. Now, the final story that I've got for you guys today, all the latest updates that we've seen from Hadi Choopan training. I think he really earns his nickname, the Persian Wolf, because he's hungry like the wolf. And I hate myself for saying that pun the second that it came out of my mouth. But like what I mentioned earlier about Hadi having a chip on his shoulder after losing the Olympia title to Derek in 2023, the way this guy trains, I feel like is unlike anybody else. 3 weeks out from the Olympia, these look like 150s or 160s. 3 weeks out. Incline pressing them. And you see all these crazy videos from Hadi, and this is towards the end of his prep. This is like really depleted mode. He's about to compete in a couple of weeks, training insanely heavy. If you're Derek Lunsford, I feel like you got to be watching this, and I think you're probably training a little bit harder as you're watching Hadi train, because you can tell this guy wants his title back. And then just a couple days earlier, Hadi had posted another video where he's doing shrugs with what looks like 6.5 plates. A couple weeks before that, he's doing squats with like 6 plates on each side. He's training super heavy going into the Olympia, hard and heavy. And this is something that makes me really respect the work ethic that Hadi has. Is not only can you always count on Hadi to come in with crazy conditioning, even a Hadi that is maybe not his best is still probably the most conditioned guy in the lineup. So you can tell how disciplined he is with the diet alone. But look at the discipline when it comes to the training. He's crazy about the diet. He's crazy with the training. This is a guy that just has insane work ethic and just love for the sport. I feel like you just can't help but respect the passion that Hadi has for this. And I think you got to give some credit to his coach, Hani Rambod, too, but just the fact that Hadi really seems to never miss. You never really see him off. He's always conditioned. He's extremely consistent. He trains insanely hard. And even after all these years of consistency, coming in on, training heavy, still he's able to improve. We saw significant improvement in Hadi's physique from just 2023 Olympia to the 2024 Arnold. I wonder how much improvement he's made from the Arnold to this Olympia with this kind of training. And also with Hani Rambod as his coach. And I think I mentioned this in the last video as well, but I mean, look at Hani. He's got the 3 best guys in the world. Chris, Derek, and Hadi. I think the only guy that Hani is missing that would make his stable of guys right now more impressive is if Hani had Keon as well. But Keon's doing a great job with his coach. I'm not saying he's not. But if Hani had Keon, Chris, Derek, and Hadi all in the same year, this year at the same Olympia, I think that would be probably the greatest coaching responsibility any bodybuilding coach has had in the history of the sport. And Hani is just one guy away from that. I honestly don't even know how Hani is able to juggle just Hadi and Derek at the same time. 2 guys that are super close as far as competitively and just hungry to beat each other again. And I guess I didn't think about this before, but this is kind of the tiebreaker. This is best 2 out of 3. The first time Hadi and Derek went head-to-head in open, Hadi won. The second time, Derek won. This is the third time. This is the tiebreaker. And I wonder who you guys think is going to win of those 2 guys. But that's going to wrap it up for the video today, guys. I hope you did, in fact, enjoy it. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, click that bell notification icon if you have not already. And as always, I love you guys, appreciate you guys. Nick Strength and Power, signing out. All right, guys, don't forget to click that like button and subscribe to this channel if you enjoy the content. Also, check out my Instagram at NickStrengthPower. My Facebook page, which is simply Nick Strength and Power. My secondary YouTube channel, Nick Strength and Vlogs, for vlogs and bonus content that you will not see on this channel. And consider subscribing to my third YouTube channel, Nick Strength and Pokemon, which is all things Pokemon and trading card games, completely unrelated to this channel. So if you're into that, give that one a look. And all links to merchandise and social media will be in the description box below. If you guys want a Nick Strength and Power t-shirt, that will be in the Shopify link below. Have a great day.